So I'm going to do a session on how you can convert your face-to-face training, or like my tips for converting face-to-face training into e-learning. We're going to do, because it's the afternoon and you've all had cake and stuff and you're all really tired, we're going to do some activities. And I'm really hoping that that will actually kind of enforce some of my points that I want to make as you work together. So as Martin said, for those of you who don't know me, I run a company called Little Man Project, and we specialise in creating content, bespoke content for the charity sector. So you've got your library from CLC. When you've got gaps in that you need specific things for your organisation, we can help with that. So we just plug in those little bits of gaps that you might have with bespoke. So I have been working in L&D for 25 years. I know because I started in the 2000s, so the maths is really simple for me. As Martin said, I've been working with CLC for 13 years, and this is officially my 27th members meeting session. Let's hope I've actually got good at it while we've been here. The other thing I want to say is that I am the author of a little book of induction, and I have just finished the second edition, because we're out of print on it. So that will hopefully be coming real soon. New update. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I absolutely love charity shops, like as in, Jodie can attest to how slightly overexcited I get by this topic. So there will be a prize for somebody who gives me tips on where to go for charity shops. Like if your organisation runs them, tell me the best one you've got, and I will be there. I'm also the co-author of a programme called E-Learning Unlocked, which helps individuals within charities to develop their own content. And it's all of these steps, and we're currently, for this cohort, 2025, we're currently in Unit 1, and my session is part of that, unit. I've also got some copies of the Unit 1 workbook where we had a misprint. I'm not going to put them in the skip. I've got 10 copies, so if you give me a charity shop recommendation, you will get a free copy. And don't feel bad about doing this, because I do not want to carry them home. They absolutely weigh a ton, so you will be doing me a favour. That's at the end. Okay, so my session. So when I talk about training in the context of this particular session, I am talking about any of these things. So a lot of the time now, it used to be that I'd be talking about classroom in person, but obviously every tip I give you will also work for anything you're doing in terms of online webinar, live online sessions. Okay, so when it comes to moving a training to e-learning, the first kind of thing that will happen is that you'll either have a new topic that you need to do, or you'll be doing this conversion thing. So I'm going to be focusing on that conversion, so not starting from scratch, but converting. And the conversation will often go something like this. We need a new X. Okay, no problem. Can I ask why? And it's because, for some reason, you need to move that, i.e., we can't run them often enough, our trainer's leaving, that's the kind of reasoning behind that shift. And quite often it will say, don't worry, we've got the slide deck, you can just use that. And that's what I want to talk about. Okay, so I am on the Mentimeter bandwagon. Can you scan that code? And I'd like to give me one word that would describe a really good training course that you've been on. It could be your own, that you're running, or it could be something else completely different. So just give me one word that summarised what made it good. It's asking for 3, but you can give me one. Don't do that one yet. You're on the right slide. Still? This is why I don't do Mentimeter. Still? All right, just shout out. Let's go low tech. Give me some words.
Fun.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Don't like that one, no. Inspirational, fun, interactive. What was the other? Just in time. I love that one. Okay, cool. So we're going to come back to this. So now on your tables, I want you to use the post-it notes. Everybody should have post-it notes. If you don't, you can steal them from the back where they're not sitting. And I want you to write down all of the different elements that are involved in a training course. So I've given you some clues along the bottom. So people, activities, assets. I've put in emotion. So just think about what those elements might be and get them down on post-its. And then we're going to come back to this and we'll start to group them. Sorry? No, I mean, talk to each other. 5 minutes. Is it recording?
The learning transfer.
You are absolutely going to win the challenge for the most amount, aren't you? I love this. How many have you got? Have you?
Be sure to say.
We're going for
Okay. Thank you. Right. I didn't do these slides, which is why I'm in all of these slides. That I'm not that. Right. So, what did you come up with? I mean, this table, you can barely see the table. They've got such big Post-its. Hopefully, big ideas. Give me one of yours. Visuals. Like PowerPoint? To see. What have you got?
We've got learning plan, budget costs, design, evaluation.
Oh, yes. What have you got, guys? I'm going to go further back.
Environment.
Nice.
Agenda and timings. Objectives. Evaluation. Icebreakers.
Lovely. Anyone else? What have we missed?
Posted the actual purpose.
Post-it notes.
Assessment.
Assessment.
Facilitator and SMEs.
What was that about?
Learner motivation.
Oh. Oh, I knew you'd do good. Right. Okay. So I would kind of categorise those into, we've got, take away the logistics side of running it. You've got this concept of what the trainer's going to say, what they're going to look at, people are going to look at, what is going to be provided to the learner. No one mentioned kind of workbooks or like handouts, those sorts of things. What is going to be done in that session, actually the activities that you're going to do, and then what the learner says, because a lot of the value will come from other people. So what I'd like you to do now is to actually go onto the Mentimeter that did work. And I would like you to rank those things in terms of, from an L&D perspective, from your knowledge, what do you think the most important things are out of these? I know they're all important, but where do you think the real power is coming? Please tell me you're not now at the other Mentimeter and now. Are you in the right order one? Nice.
Put QR code up.
I've got the QR code up. But it took them to this one, not the other one. You done it? Let's see what we got. Okay, so what we have learnt along the way in this process is that when you get given the slides and told, can you create a piece of e-learning with that, the big mistake we've got is that we believe, is the lowest priority in terms of the quality of where you're getting your output. And that is why it doesn't really work. Because the power is what's going on up here. This is the printed material. You literally did exactly what I wanted you to do, which was to put these two at the bottom, which is the classic two things that you would get given, and it happens to us all the time. Little Man Project, can you create a piece of e-learning based on an existing training course? Here's the slides, here's the handouts that they get. And we miss absolutely all of the power at the top. And so if you take away anything from my session, that is what I want you to take away, is that if you want to develop effective e-learning that's based on an existing course, 100% you need to be thinking about, how am I going to get this? Because this is just one tiny part of that process. So if we go back to this, you'll see that what we've done is we failed miserably in this. We're setting ourselves up for failure because we're not going to get the powerful stuff if we just take that slide deck and turn that into e-learning. So as I said, I didn't create these slides. So when I was trying to explain the concepts to Jamie, I mean, I put the words on the screen and then he does all this nice stuff. I was explaining this concept to Jamie and he's like, yeah, that really makes sense. And he's like, it's like a sandwich. So I let him run with it. So my point is, if you just take the slides, you get the really dry, boring stuff. You just get a bit of bread. Yeah, it's wholesome and it's filling, but it's really boring. So for me, the participants are the butter. Now, you've actually switched it around. I would say that what comes out of the trainer's mouth is the most important, but I love that you think it's the participants. But either way, so you can imagine that we swap these around. So the butter is that kind of the lubricant, the thing that, you know, makes it more appetizer, sticks it together, you know, lots of analogies here. And then what is said by the trainer, apologies to all of the vegetarians, is that meat in the middle. That's where you get the core value. And then you've got a bit of bread on the top. So the point is that you're missing out on all of this beautiful taste and interest if you're only focusing on those slides and not bringing in the rest of that richness. Because the slides are really just going to bring you that, you know, the information, the facts, the data, you know, the dry stuff. But where you get the power is that inspiration from each other, the humour, somebody mentioned humour, that interactivity between. But you get the kind of rich stories from a trainer. You know, fundamentally, if you just base it on the slides, you should have just given them the slides, because that's effectively what you're doing. Whereas when you go to a training course, it's the richness of the stories that we tell. So if I showed you this slide, you wouldn't be getting all of the value that I'm giving you by explaining those in more detail and, you know, sort of giving that the analogies. So you won't get the nuance. You won't get the insider tips. You know, I did this, so this is what happened here, so I would suggest here. You also don't get the real information, because what they put on the slide is the official version. What they say is the bit that they didn't want anyone to know that they were saying, but it's the truth. And you get that kind of instant clarity, because obviously, if I'm giving a presentation and you're all sitting there kind of going, then I pick up on that vibe and I can dig deeper. So, you know, I can kind of instantly respond to what you're doing. You can ask me a question, I can, you know, give you the response. And similarly with the participant. So here you get the rich stories, but I would argue here's you get the real stories, because then when I present to you, so I have done this very activity of turning a 4-day program, volunteer management program, into an e-learning program. And what happened all the way through that session when I attended to see what happened in live, what repeatedly happened was the trainer would say, da, 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 we should do this. And the delegates would say, we tried that, our manager won't let us do it. So instantly now they're able to respond and use the collective think about how you could then change, you know, that perception. So what you're doing is you're getting those real stories and then adapting to those. You're also getting loads of practical tips, because you get that whole kind of, well, we tried it and it didn't work, so we did this instead. And you're getting that kind of connection and that support from each other. So I would like you to look at the post-it notes that you've got here and sort of stack them up into those different areas that we were thinking about here. And see where you get in terms of what you had, you know, what's coming, what the trainer's giving us, what we're seeing visually, what the learner says, what is done, and what can be provided. These are going to struggle because you've got the most amount. Yeah. Up this.
Well, you got it right on your left. You would have written me. Relevant and providing as a trainer.
Over there. Feedback.
How much power has that got?
I don't know.
10 minutes.
I didn't have much.
What?
I didn't have much. Is that enough?
I can't see how much you've got. Oh yeah, you've got about a quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Visual. Yeah. Well, I thought it was cool, like, got to think about it all the way along. I think the differentiation is more like actually what the trainer can do. You can't differentiate any content unless you've got training.
But it would also be the learner, I think, as well. I've been influenced.
Can I
I'm going to finish at 1:30.
Good. Can I offer this as a prize?
Don't know what for.
No, I don't know.
Because it has to be an individual person.
I know. Same as I've got an umbrella here. Who do I promise an umbrella to?
Yeah, I mean, I put that sort of engagement from a line manager for attendance.
You're just going to hang out on my session with me?
Yeah, so I like working with you.
Should we do a selfie?
Yeah.
And then we're going to get them to stop. Right, now that the selfies are done, where are your... Oh, this Sam is just going to start giggling. Where are your big piles? What have you? What's the grouping with the most amount of post-it notes on? What is done? The activities. Learner. Yeah? Yeah? So you see, that is where the power is, and that is why we need to focus on those. So as I come to a close so that you can all get your trains and planes and automobiles, I'm going to just run you through 5, too fast, Jill, 5 tips that I've got for how to do this in practice. Okay, so my number 1 tip is go and make sure that you are experiencing that training. Now, obviously, there's pros and cons of both of those options because sometimes you can attend and sometimes you can't because it's not running anymore, or it's not running for a while. Also, it's worth considering the impact of you being on that training, on the training experience for the delegates. Because you will have an impact as an observer and shift things. So you need to be kind of aware of that and kind of consider that. So for me, the ideal is to go. If you can't go, then I would run through with the trainer and literally talk them through the, like, oh, we do this and then we do this. And quite often when we do this, everyone has a conversation around this. And that's really powerful. And then I would then respond by doing that. So actually talk them through the session. Now, this one takes quite a long time. I did, like I said, it was a 4-day training. I sat in the classroom for 2 days because it was done in 2 halves. So I did that, and it took me 2 days to attend that. And then we did the second half with this, and then that was more like a day because you can you're not less fluff. But it's quite an intensive experience, I just spend the whole time writing notes. The powerful one for this one, for me, is that you get live commentary from the learners, so you see exactly what they're doing. The downside is you might have a bad group, as in a not very engaged group, or you might have a very specific group. So you might have, if it's charity retail, you might have, just one branch there, and they might have a specific, a culture that's causing problems, and you're kind of dealing with that. So you'll only see one kind of snapshot of it. So obviously the ideal is to go to as many as possible, but we don't have the time for that. So definitely do one of those or both of those. The next thing I would do is make sure that you're reviewing the feedback from learners, because just because the trainer thinks it's still the best training course that they've ever delivered and it's wonderful and it's perfect, you really need to go and find out what the learners are saying about it. And don't just look at kind of feedback scores. I would go and talk to them, because what they wrote down in that feedback, because they knew the trainer was going to look at it, is going to be a little bit different to if you go and have a conversation with them. So go talk to them and find out, what did they find useful, what was said, what happened, did it actually help you on reflection? And learn as much as you can from that, which would then apply to when you're developing the training yourself. The next thing I would say is recheck the goal. I mean, recheck why you've got the thing in the first place. Just because you've been running this course for ages and you now want to do it in a different way doesn't mean that you should. But definitely re-evaluate whether or not the goal that when that course was designed is still relevant to now. If you've heard me speak before, you know that I am obsessed with, whenever you create any piece of e-learning, you must have a goal in mind. I don't mean learning objectives. I mean, what change do you want to see in the organisation based on people completing that e-learning? And so whatever the goal was originally, you need to make sure that that is still the goal, so that, because otherwise you're going to reach the goal and it's going to be the wrong goal. So work out if it's still relevant. But also, really importantly, as much as I think e-learning solves every problem in the entire world, when it's been done well, is that goal going to be achieved by e-learning? Because just because somebody decided that you couldn't do the training anymore face-to-face because of cost or whatever, doesn't mean that by turning it into an e-learning, you're still going to get success. Because if all the power comes from the delegate conversations and the connections that the participants are making with each other, then you're not going to achieve the goal anymore, because you've made it into e-learning. You completely destroyed the one thing that it was doing successfully. So make sure that you recheck whatever your goal is to make sure that you're going to still be able to reach it. The other thing I wanted to suggest is that you need to play to the strengths of e-learning. So, training's really good at those sorts of things, bringing energy, inspiring people. But e-learning is really good at allowing people to make mistakes privately. So scenarios are brilliant, because in a classroom, people are going to do the thing that they thought you wanted them to do because it was a public space and they've got colleagues with them and they're going to play the game. E-learning allows them to completely mess up, nobody knows, and they get to have another go, and they'll, So play to the strengths when you're thinking about how you're going to achieve that goal in its completely new context. Think about how you're going to then use e-learning strengths over what would have happened in the classroom. But also, whatever you learnt about the training, whatever you learned, why it was successful, you need to be thinking about, can I bring those elements in? So was it because the trainer's actually really funny and there's loads of humour and that really inspires people? Well, then the e-learning probably needs to do the same. So play to the strengths, but also build on what was already happening. And I would say this with any e-learning you create, absolutely be ruthless. Think about your goal at the end, what do we want to achieve, and only put content in that gets you to that goal. Your subject matter experts, and in this case probably your trainer, is going to want to fill it all up with loads of stuff that it likes, they like. And it's your responsibility to stand in the way and say, no, that's not coming in. Because just because you throw a load of stuff at people doesn't mean some of it sticks. It probably means nothing will stick. So less is 100% more when it comes to e-learning. So really go through and make sure that your content is only there because if it's going to meet the goal, and get rid of any of the fluff. The fluff works in a classroom, but it's not going to work as well in e-learning. So just get them exactly what they need. And that's me.